Hey everyone, welcome to Reaction Shots for June. We're talking about Pride, LGBTQIA plus cinema. And I am joined by, of course, Michael Huber.
Hello!
Illustrious co-host, and two special guests. Mark, you want to go first? Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Marc Francis in LA. I am an archivist, film programmer, curator of Wayward Cinema, a screening series that shows a lot of queer content. I also am a professor, adjunct professor. I taught queer cinema classes. I will try to not use my scholarly teacher voice during this.
Please do. I want to hear it. Teach me, Daddy.
That pretty much covers it. So that's my story.
Love it. Emily, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily. You may know me as Adequate Emily. I am a filmmaker. I haven't made much yet because I am a film student, but I am working on it. And a video essayist. You can find my videos at the channel Adequate Emily. And I do video essays and film reviews there. And I did one, I was going to say recently, but it was 6 months ago. Quarantine has been taking a lot out of me in that sense. On trans representation in the film The Danish Girl as part of my series Trans Women in Cinema.
Great. I still haven't watched The Danish Girl.
You don't need to.
Should? Okay, that was kind of that's kind of what I assumed.
It's not a positive video.
Okay, yeah. But before we jump into the topic at hand, real quick, just we'll go around and say something or a couple of somethings that we've liked lately. Huber, you want to go and show them how it's done?
Sure. Mayor of Easttown, best show of 2021.
Very cool show.
Straight up.
Good
Loved
gay
it.
representation, too. Loved her daughter. So cool.
Love that show. Love Kate Winslet. And just shows that appointment TV still not dead. Week to week.
Yeah, baby.
Love that build-up.
Sure.
And then actually 2 nights ago, I watched my new favorite movie of 2021, Riders of Justice with Mads.
Oh. I don't know if I've heard of this one.
It's like $7 rental now. It came out in March, I think, on demand. So
Okay.
it's down to like $7.
You know I love Mads.
It is so good. It is a dark thriller comedy. So there's dark humor here. Mads loses someone close to him and forms a bond in unexpected places with some violence spruced in as well. I don't want to give too much away about this movie because it is just incredible. It made me
Riders of Justice.
It made me tear up numerous times. It made me laugh out loud numerous times. It made my jaw drop numerous times. Cannot stress enough. Riders of Justice, so good.
2020 is going to be the decade of Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Every moment of my life is all Mads all the time. He's
So good. Yeah, it's
Absolutely justified.
Yeah.
It's Danish, so his native language, so it's subtitles. If that's a deal breaker for some. I know some people don't like to read subtitles.
I know how to read.
Yeah. So that's pretty much some other stuff, but that's pretty much it. But
I still need to see another round. I haven't watched that yet.
Next on my list. Yeah.
Amazing. I
Is it
saw it.
good?
It's one of my favorite movies of last year.
Sick.
I watched it as part of a Oscar sort of marathon I was doing. I was going to watch all the Best Picture movies, and then I had like work 2 days of that week, and I just was like, I can't watch 8 movies in 2 days.
Yeah.
That might be a little too much.
I got through like
just-
6 of them, I think.
I just wasn't
I watched
interested.
another
so
round
just
because I
didn't
wanted
watch it.
to. Minari, Trial of Chicago 7, Mank, and Nomadland.
Nice.
And another round might have... actually, no, Minari was my favorite of them, but another round was very close to Minari. They were both
Nice.
excellent, and Trial of Chicago 7 was the weakest.
A friend of mine is friends with the woman who was the art director on Nomadland.
Nice.
So that's cool.
Better than I thought it'd be.
Very beautiful shot direction.
Nice. Emily, anything else that you've liked lately?
In the past week, this might come to as a shock to some people. For the first time ever, I watched the entire Matrix trilogy. I haven't ever seen The Matrix. I know, like, especially as like a trans woman, but as a film buff in general, it's weird to have not seen The Matrix. It just wasn't on streaming services when I was getting really into film, and that was how I like understood how to get like most films. So it around the time it came on Netflix, I was in college. I was not watching what was coming on Netflix as much, and more just whatever I could find at the library instead. But I watched for the first time. I specifically decided to watch a trilogy because I was part of a video. I was just a voice actress in the video, but I was part of a video that two of my friends, Curio and Sarah Zedek, made called "The Matrix Sequels Are Good, Actually." And I figured if I'm going to be in this video, I should at least see it. Yeah. And I was like, and I watched them, and I gotta say, yeah, the Matrix sequels get way too much shit. Like, I do not get what people would dislike about the Matrix sequels that isn't in the first one. Like, if you're gonna say it's too corny, the first one is completely cheesy, and that's part of the fun. Like, if you're gonna say it's too metaphorical, the first one's full of philosophy. Like, I thought they were a fun time. They're a little bit weaker than the first one, but they're still a great time. And
it's interesting,
as it's been revealed, filled with a lot of trans themes and a lot of queerness. I mean, inherently, the idea of escaping a world that you've been forced into a specific role does have certain queer vibes to it.
Yeah, can relate. It's an interesting vibe to have not seen them and then watch all three in a row. It probably is like a very different experience because I think people didn't like 2 and 3 because there was so much pressure put on them, because Matrix 1 like changed everything at the time, and so like it was wild.
Someone also pointed out when the video came out in one of the replies on Twitter, and I thought this was an interesting point, that a lot of people tried to put it up against Lord of the Rings. And that was kind of a difficult comparison because Lord of the Rings was constructed as a trilogy based on something written decades ago that you could already, like, if you wanted to change anything, people had already, like, kind of decided what they wanted to change. This was something that was being thought up on the fly. And
weird comparison.
It's not even a trilogy per se, because it's really just one movie that was stretched out into 2. Like, it really Matrix is a part 1 and a part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like, the idea of my trilogy is better than yours doesn't exactly work, because they're very not one-to-one. Like,
who was your favorite character in the whole thing?
I mean, in terms of interest, like, I really love Agent Smith's arc. Like, it's very
fun.
Unique. Like, the first one, it was just the idea of just, like, this contemptuous, like, I hate the fact that I have to do this. And then, like, following up and having him become this agent of chaos once he's released from it. That's such a unique character arc that you rarely see. And I also like Trinity a lot. Trinity is very interesting. As pointed out in the video I was in, very queer coded, which makes it very interesting to see her making out with Keanu Reeves, because you just look at it and you're just like, are we sure this is what the character should be doing? I know Neo, as argued in the video, is like kind of coded as a more like feminine lead character than most male action heroes. Yeah, I was gonna say
Keanu counts as like an honorary lesbian, I feel like.
Yeah, but like it was sort of a moment where I was still like, I still saw Keanu in the moment for there, and I was just kind of like, are we sure this is what this character should be doing? But like, she's very interesting and fun, and anyone who says she's bitchy, I do not get you. Like, just
love Trinity.
You can be interesting, fun, and bitchy.
Yeah,
I've made my whole career on it.
Most of the Frenchman was fun whenever he was on screen. The Frenchman was always fun.
Oh, sure.
The cake scene was weird, but it was fun.
Programming women to have orgasms from their cake or whatever.
I couldn't explain that scene. There's a philosophy there, but I just was like, you didn't need to represent it through cake.
Chocolate's great is the philosophy. Mark, what about you? You liked anything lately?
Yeah, I mean, just to respond to these two, I did like Mayor of Easttown as well. Though I don't think it's like a masterpiece. I think it's a very well done kind of suspense thriller, miniseries. And then I also recently watched a film by the Wachowskis I've meant to watch for a while, Speed Racer.
Hell yeah.
Still need to watch Speed Racer.
Hell yeah.
I love it's getting a huge. I love it's getting this huge like revival in a lot of people's mind, because for a while I just heard it was like, oh, it's the worst movie. It's so bad.
It was the best. Saw it in IMAX day one. It's always been good. Right the wrongs, internet.
Have you seen Redline? Have you seen the anime Redline?
No.
I need
It's fucking sick. It's kind of like Speed Racer. It's like, it's just 90 minutes of like complete insanity, but the animation is incredible. Anyway, continue, Mark.
And it's funny because there was a book that came out by this trans scholar named Cale Keegan on the Wachowskis, and kind of reading their work.
It was in my Danish Girl video.
Oh, funny.
I said, nice. Works, and I asked him if he wanted to record the line, and he did it.
He's awesome, and the book is really fantastic. And it's like kind of rereading the Wachowskis, corpus through kind of a trans lens. And so, of course, like, and the mark of a good scholar is like, oh, I don't really understand. Like, I'm watching Speed Racer, and I'm like, how is this a trans narrative? And then I go to the book, and I'm like, oh, that's how it is. So I'm not going to reveal it, but it's like, it's because I'm helping plug the book. But I think it's a very convincing reading of it that's not so clear cut or obvious. But I wanted the thing I watched within the past few weeks that I loved is a super obscure Cuban film from basically right after the revolution called Death of a Bureaucrat, which is a dark comedy about this guy whose uncle dies, and in order for his aunt to receive the uncle's pension, they need to prove that he worked. He has a labor card, but of course the uncle was buried with the labor card. So basically, they have to jump through all these hoops, and he has to basically navigate this bureaucracy, which sounds really boring, but is actually made very funny and dry and dark. To try and get this card, and then he tries to, unearth the uncle, and he has to convince. Anyway, so it's all about navigating bureaucracy in kind of post-revolution Cuba, and it's very, very clever, and I would highly recommend it.
What's that one called?
To watch. Death of a Bureaucrat, and it's on YouTube, I think, and with subtitles. So
cool.
Yeah, and it's short.
It's almost. Is it like? It sounds almost like a little absurdist in a way. It's like approaching it the way you're describing it. I like that. I like that. It makes me think of like. I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's really off face with the way you're describing it. It sounds a bit like in that Jacques Tati Playtime sort of thing of like this world that like is just unknowable to these characters.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's got surreal moments. It's got almost like Buñuel, like surrealism with scenes like dreams.
That was what I was going to mention.
But then it's also got like, these kind of long kind of like slapstick scenes. It's really it's a really smart, interesting film that, again, I never heard of. But my partner works on Latin American cinema. He's a scholar of Latin American cinema. So he was like, you should watch this. This is one of the most important Cuban films ever made. And I didn't regret it.
Speaking of digging up a body, my monthly requisite mention of Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. Huber, you gotta watch it.
I know, shit.
It's great.
I just want to finish Patriot.
We gotta finish Patriot.
I will not bail out.
The greatest show with the worst title.
I'm so in to finish. I'll keep reminding us
things about it.
to do it.
Patriot is sick.
Good show.
Bad title, though.
Terrible.
I've heard it has a good title sequence, too.
Yeah, oh my god. I love Patriot. Such a good show. Anyway, my turn. I liked Loki. I just watched it. And it was great. I liked the music a lot.
Great music.
And Tom Hiddleston dicking around is always fun.
Is this
and
the
also,
Marvel show? What is this?
Yeah, Loki with
and you liked it. And
yeah.
Are they releasing it in batches, or is it just one dump?
One a week. Appointment television is not dead.
Yes. Yes.
I also liked Mare of Easttown quite a bit. I liked her character and her development.
Yeah.
And her daughter kind of more than the mystery, but I'm fine with that. Like it's rough. It's hard. It seems really hard to make a good, satisfying mystery. Like of the prestige TV, I think maybe Sharp Objects did it the best of recent years, and I liked The Undoing too.
Oh wow.
Shit, I mean, I like HBO adult dramas
Dude,
as it happens. I like The
Undoing.
Outsider. I like The Third Day. I'm like the only one.
Oh, no.
You didn't like The Third Day?
Hate it.
You didn't like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. We'll get into it. I'm gonna slice your eyeballs.
Dare you?
I appreciate
Yama is a goddess.
Yeah.
something like impossible nowadays for me is to like have real danger in television and film, like real, actual, a palpable threat and danger. And Mayor of Easttown had it in spades.
Yeah, for sure. I was
And
worried
that
about
is
everyone.
why I think it's a masterpiece, truly. In today's TV, where everyone is pretty much invincible, or it's telegraphed, and you really expect it, like Mayor of Easttown.
Mayor of Easttown pulls
danger.
no punches,
Yeah.
and I love that. Yeah.
Well orchestrated, for sure. Well constructed.
I just realized that she, like, I won't say specifically, but the litany of injuries that she that befall Mare is so good. She's got like a different body part hurt in every episode. It's like amazing.
Banged up.
She gets banged up. It's a metaphor.
And I will say, you
What's
know,
her
I
mom's
grew up-
name? The actor.
Oh, Gene
Oh.
Smart. It's so good.
From
Yeah.
Logan
He's
or
been so good.
not Logan.
Watchmen?
Legion,
Oh,
and Watchmen.
And Watchmen, yeah.
I loved Legion. Everybody
Yeah,
shut
Legion's
up. I
amazing.
loved it.
No, Legion's great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Should we talk about the topic?
Yeah, that's-
all right.
Dive
So
in.
yeah, how this will what?
Dive in.
Oh yeah, I thought you said tell him. I was like, tell who what?
No.
So we got
Just saying,
12
like,
pages of
finish him.
madness here. Yeah, finish him. So yeah, we got a lot of comments. The way this will work is I'll read through the comments. I asked some prompts of our patrons on patreon.com/easyallies. Check it out. Tell your friends. Ha ha ha. We need money. And I'll read the comment, and then we'll talk about it, and then I'll read another comment, and then we'll talk about that, and then eventually the show will be done. How's that sound?
Sounds like
First-
a good plan.
It's a good structure.
Do we have a say in this?
Well thought out.
No, I don't know why I'm asking.
I appreciate the prep. I appreciate all the
Yeah.
prep.
She's just telegraphed it onto like one
Yeah.
of those like Playboy, like one of those white or dry erase
Yeah,
boards
yeah.
you see in like a
Here's how it's
sports
gonna
movie.
go. Yeah. The circles, you go over here. Grab what I think is called the football and take it over there. All right, Spencer from Canada says, I loved this. This floored me. I saw Rent in English class in high school and absolutely loved it. Canada's playing it rough in high school. That's pretty wild, I think, for high school English class. Whatever. I love musicals, and this one is so powerful looking back. Rocky Horror Picture Show also has a special place in my heart because my dad took my brother and I to a live Halloween viewing of it, which, if you don't know, is the best way to see it. And then they bring up Schitt's Creek, which just oozes queerness all the time, but it's very just like normal and accepted and so well done. I loved Schitt's Creek for that. But anyway, 3 great pulls. Spencer from Canada. Any comments from the panel?
I adore
This
Rent.
is-
My wife, it's one of her favorite things ever. Listens to it all the time. Throws the movie on when we're in bed sometimes to go to sleep.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely love Rent.
Thought you
10
were,
out
like,
of 10.
fucking to Rent or something. I was like, ooh.
No. It's just
Question: musical or Broadway version or the movie?
Good
version?
question.
movie
question.
version. Just the movie version.
It's so bad.
No,
So
no.
bad.
I was gonna
I'm
say
sorry.
the movie version gets way more shit.
Like it.
I saw the Pantages because my
seen-
friend wanted to go. Oh man,
Yeah,
there are parts of Rent I like and parts of Rent I don't like.
They cut the best
Chris
song.
Columbus.
They cut the best song ever. It's in the deleted scenes though, so we go there. We watch that deleted
Which
scenes.
song?
It's kind of a spoiler. It's near the very end of the movie. It's near
The one with Angel or what?
It's near the very, very end.
You can spoil
I just
Rent.
realized-
At the funeral. There's spoilers
alright.
for Rent. Damn it! Not gonna spoil
people
it.
die
This
in
person
Rent?
just watched it. People,
All right.
people.
No, they watched
just-
it in high school.
Oh, okay. I missed
English
that part. I missed
class.
that part.
Well, I guess
We
they
don't
could
know
be
if
still in
people
high
are-
school.
in high school.
I guess they could be still in high
yeah.
school.
People are
There was an
discovering
air
all
of
the
past
time.
about it. What is this podcast? It's just us screaming at each other about Rent.
Rent
Mark,
is good,
talk about Rent.
Hey, if the
Mark, you look like you-
I'll fit in well.
Mark, you have something to say about Rent, it looks like. I can see it on your face.
I don't have anything productive to say about Rent the movie, but
That's what I
just
thought.
would say that those are just such strange choices. I mean, just this person has very interesting tastes. Like I see obviously the musical
Appreciate that kind of taste.
Rocky
I
Horror
love it.
Show, but it's just like anyway. And then Schitt's Creek is really somewhere else. It's interesting. I don't know. This person is intriguing to me.
They like it's the holy trinity of queer representation,
No,
right? Like
no.
pure camp.
But they
Pure
do
camp.
they're in different. Yeah.
You're
like-
yeah. Well, no, it's
white
pure-
and straight acting.
Yeah, pure camp, Hollywoodized, whatever, mainstreamized queerness, capitalism, and then just fully accepted, normalized everything. Wonderful Schitt's Creek.
Movie.
This is a great topic.
but I'm
I haven't seen any of these.
Oh, really?
Oh wow! But I
You gotta see Rocky Horror.
Yeah, and
I should.
Yeah, and I am going to be curious to. I'm wondering how much Rocky Horror is going to pop up on these lists.
A lot.
And that's interesting.
It is very
Rocky
important.
Horror for certain generations feels, even though I think it's an incredibly queer text and has a lot of queer kind of possibility to it, subversive possibility to it. I think a lot of there are certain generations who think of it actually as a quite straight text because of its following. The kind of midnight crowd, the midnight screening crowd tend to be more straight. Even though they were dressing up and stuff, it was like this escape to kind of defy gender norms and stuff, but then they would go back to their kind of like heteronormative comforts. And so
it's like a free pass, like Halloween kind of.
Kind of. And so it's interesting. Exactly.
To be queer for one night.
Yeah,
exactly.
just have a
Queer
little
for a
fun.
night, kind of release valve or relief, whatever you call that, safety, whatever. And so I think. Anyways, I'll be curious to hear how much that pops on the list because I think, it's depends on who you talk to if it's actually a queer text.
Let's count them. That's one.
Yeah.
We'll keep count, and we'll keep count of Brokeback too.
Yes.
I think it's really interesting because, like, I think the way what you're describing also, I would say that, like, with Rocky Horror, it's such an important, like, queer text in a way in terms of what it was, how influential it was on the community at the time, that it can often be a thing where a lot of people can look back at it and much more see its flaws in hindsight now that we know more about the community, where maybe a song about a transvestite killer is maybe not as cool as it was transgressive at the time when that's an actual thing, like myth that people have around like trans people now. Do I think that's the fault of the film? Obviously not. They can't predict the future. But I can see how more people could be like, I can't get into this now because something that was transgressive at the time seems more dated now.
Right.
Perspective.
Well, and it's a trope that didn't really come up in this, but we can mention it. Like, the trans killer, like your Silence of the Lambs, your Sleepaway Camp, your Dressed to Kill. Yeah, like it's pervasive. And then you've got stuff like
I hate Sleepaway Camp.
yeah, for sure. And you've got stuff like Ace Ventura or Crying Game, where it's like, ooh, big twist, like transphobia or whatever. Crying Game I haven't seen, and it seems like it skirts the line, sort of. But like maybe it was like trying to do it right, but
the thing I've heard about Crying
made.
Game is that the twist happens midway through the movie instead of the end, like Ace Ventura. So you get to see her being a character for the rest of the movie, and the plot still progresses. So instead, it's more human, while as with Ace Ventura, it's just a reference to the Crying Game that they use as a punchline at the end.
Yeah, they play the song and everything.
It does not mean that the Crying Game is perfect at it, from what I've heard. I haven't seen it myself, partially because that does not sound like a fun way to spend my night sometimes. To be like, let's look at something that objectively views me in a way that's disgusting. It doesn't sound like the most
I've seen
fun
the
way
scene
to
of
spend my night.
I've seen the scene of the guy like seeing her genitals and like puking or whatever, and I'm just like, all right, don't need that.
I've at least heard that it is at least more of a character than in the film. She's not a villain, from what I understand. She's just an accomplice. In Ace Ventura, it's straight up like she's a villain, she is doing this to get away with something, and she is like inherently tricking people, and that's part of the transition. And not great, not the best. I know, shocking take. Ace Ventura aged poorly. I know, no one's ever made that comment before.
Ace Ventura 2 has some funny moments, though. That rhino gets pretty hot in those rhinos, you know?
I did not realize that was the second one. I assumed that was the first one.
No, the first one doesn't exist, and the second one's kind of funny. Jesper Pamphil Dufay, sorry if I got that wrong. It's been a long time since I saw it, but I remember really liking Boys Don't Cry, though it was tough to watch. I haven't seen that one either. I'm learning something about myself, that I tended to avoid trans stories where the character was having difficult times. I think my subconscious was protecting me, maybe.
Boys Don't Cry is interesting because, like, at the time when I watched it, I thought it was good but flawed. But also, I was 15. I had just realized I was trans, and I was way ready to let a lot of stuff slide. Because I was 15 years old, and I was in that phase of my life where I'm like, I'm not like those other people. I'm not so easily offended. I'm an edgy teen. Because that was apparently just what teenagers did in the 2010s on the internet.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I think I was probably my most easily offended as an edgy teen.
I'm in the same boat as that commenter. I saw it so long ago and I remember loving it, but it's been too long. I can't even remember a scene in the movie. It's been so long.
What I do remember is there is a scene in it where they kind of imply that Brandon is like, oh, maybe he's just a lesbian. And I'm just like, that's not cool. The thing is that it's hard for me to comment on how it is as representation because while I am trans, I'm not trans mask.
Right.
And as such, I can sort of listen to the community on it to understand what's poor representation, but it's harder for me to know what's accurate because I don't know from my own personal experiences. It's much more easy when you're in a community and you've experienced it yourself to bounce off from other people and know how they feel about something and know within yourself. But the thing is that, like, the trans feminine and trans masculine communities, while connected by that trans tissue, are different in a way in their experiences. And so it's hard for me to summarize it. But from what I understand, there's a very mixed feeling in the trans mass community because a lot of people, like, it was a discovery for them and it was important for them, but also it's not aged well, and you never know. You never know with the movie like that. I couldn't say definitively on it, and admittedly, that's why my series is called Trans Women in Cinema, because I don't have the authority to talk on anything except for trans women, and I know movies the best.
All right, let's get into it. Lily, okay, so not to be a hack right away, but Portrait of a Lady on Fire is my current favorite queer film for the way it evokes that uniquely sapphic experience of desire, power, and perception through its image, film language, among other storytelling devices. The movie just looks like how falling in love with for another girl feels. Tying into that, I think that it's the most powerful about queer cinema. Oh wait, that's for a different thing. Okay, yes, go. Mark.
Round one.
How much did we talk about this in the folk horror one? I don't want to repeat.
I think I just screamed at you and then said, I don't want to talk about it.
Perfect.
Well, because the reason was because I felt I couldn't really go to bat for it because nobody knew that I was a lesbian yet. But now, bitch.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah, now it's on.
I love Sciamma's films. I think Girlhood and Tomboy.
I've been pronouncing it wrong for like 3 years.
Celine Sciamma, yeah.
It's okay. I think those films are masterpieces. And so I was happy that she got attention with this film, or with a film, or such attention. I think this film is incredibly pretentious. It is, look how beautiful these shots are. Look how, aren't you just falling in love with these women falling in love with each other? And I wasn't. I was distracted by how much it really wanted me to feel things. I think it's too in love with itself, and I think, to talk about a film that is super problematic, but that I actually did find myself fall in love, is Blue is Warmest Color.
Really?
Absolutely.
Are you gonna disagree with that one?
Super problematic, but a film that really just
I actually have the same critique for Blue is the Warmest Color.
Yeah, really.
I haven't watched it yet.
Carries you with it. So I'm not interested in Portrait of a Lady on Fire as much as I'm interested in her other films. I may just leave it there.
Sure.
Girlhood is a very
enough.
good film. I will argue that one because that is the other Sciamma film that I have seen and fell in love with, and it's a beautiful film.
Yeah, I haven't watched Blue's the Warmest Color because of the consent stuff that I've heard maybe wasn't really there, so I kind of didn't want to watch it. But yeah, just for me, I think Portrait of a Lady on Fire had I really liked the pacing and I liked how thoughtful the shots are and the dynamics of power and stuff that she used through, and who's the observer and being observed and stuff like that, and how she shifts it. I just thought that was really interesting throughout.
I love that about you. That's something that I can't ever get that you get, I feel like, is the way the shots tell part of the story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For me with shots, I'm usually just yo, that looks sick, or yo, that made me in it more, feel it more. Taking it to that next level of power dynamics and that.
One could argue that
cool.
You're probably enjoying the film maybe as it's intended for a general audience.
For me, characters in the moment and the emotions, yes. But
I would say that you are absorbing you're absorbing the meanings of those shots without just having to talk about it like an asshole on a podcast.
Yeah. I may be able to describe what a dolly is, but you can at least me saying the word dolly does not communicate the coolness of a dolly or anything like that.
Yeah.
The emotional statement will resonate with more people, even if I know the technical terms that will make other film nerds like me swoon.
Because I think
about. I'm sorry.
Just because I think of the pretentiousness that Mark said, and I got that big time with Legion. I feel like Legion loves itself.
Legion absolutely loves itself.
And it's just I couldn't ever get into it because I just kept getting the vibe of that. Like Mark was saying, of just it loves itself, all these shots. Just look at my shots, look at this. So
I guess for me, Pretension is something that an anecdotal example of my acceptance of Pretension. I once, as a teen, I rented Cachet on DVD by Michael Haneke, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Yeah, he's great. But I for some reason, I don't know if it was put before the movie or something, but there was an interview with him that I watched for whatever reason before watching the film, and I was like, wow, this guy's a pretentious piece of shit. And then I watched the movie, and then I was like, oh yeah, he earned it. He can be pretentious. That movie is amazing.
Embrace the pretentiousness.
Yeah, so I guess I'm okay with Pretension when it's earned, and I think that Celine has earned it in my estimation.
I love that.
I also would argue that I think the shots are less. For me personally, I didn't feel like they were in love with themselves. I thought there was a lot of utility in them. She uses a lot of open spaces, for me, if I believe she was just trying to capture beautiful landscapes and stuff, she would have set all of it at the beach. But she sets a lot of it indoors. And a lot of it is based on the spacing between the characters, how they move, what's in focus, and that adds a lot more to it in terms of in my opinion, more purposefulness in how it's telling its story. It specifically I can see a shot with just I don't remember the character's name because I'm bad at everything related to French. I failed my French teacher in high school. Currently on this podcast, but I don't remember their names. I don't even know the actress's name off the top of my head. The brown-haired woman, she can just be in a shot. Yeah, the painter, and you can just look into her eyes. the acting is communicating a lot, but I think there's something about the fact that the shot can be so simple, and I think there's something in that is less in love with itself and more like utilitarian in how it's portraying the narrative. I think it serves a narrative purpose in a way. I can see in a way how someone could see it as full of itself, but for me personally, it felt so honest in a way. It felt like Skian was speaking from experience, and it was something that came from a place like watching. There was a lot of care taken into describing a world that she has lived in.
Yeah.
You were like freezing there for a second, Emily. It was like the audio was catching up.
Okay.
It was like slow robot.
I'm trying.
No, you're doing great.
Screw you, Xfinity. I will make it.
Yeah. Well, that didn't turn into a shit fight like I was hoping, but I think we're all just too reasonable, and we're all good scholars, so we won't get mad at each other for having different opinions. All right, Carl Williams is here. Unless, Mark, you had a retort or anything, but I can go to Carl. Okay.
No, I guess the worst thing I can say is I don't care enough about the movie to have a retort.
Wow. You're cutting me deep.
Honestly, sorry. Again,
that's fine. It's fine.
I'm ready to find out something I really love or I really hate.
I love that though because too many people nowadays hate on things they don't care about.
Yeah.
Just all on the internet. It's just like, it's just
like
leave
gay
it.
people.
That's the thing I love about like film criticism that I don't think a lot of people understand. It's not about having the right opinion. It's about explaining your opinion well.
Yeah, sure.
And I've read tons of great reviews that I disagree with completely, but they argued well. Like, I've read defenses of the Star Wars prequels. I still don't like them, but I get why they are. I read their argument and I went, you described it well and you had great prose. Nice. I think a lot of people try to win an argument with film opinions. It's all subjectivity. Like,
that's the whole internet is trying to win arguments. Everybody's just trying to win. To
trust me,
borrow a phrase. Yeah, to borrow a phrase from Mr. Sunday Movies.
Got mad at me.
Oh my God! To borrow a phrase from Mr. Sunday Movies, like, you listening at home, whatever your opinion is, we agree.
You are correct on everything.
You are correct.
That's good. That's so good.
Carl Williams comes in with a list here. Brokeback Mountain, A Fantastic Woman, which I still need to see. Call Me by Your Name, which I still need to see. Moonlight, which I love. I thought they were all fantastic. I feel a few others worth mentioning are The Handmaiden, which I love. The Crying Game, Carol, which I love, and Disobedience, which I need to see. Just to name a few off the top of my head.
Not enough people saw Disobedience. I loved it.
I love a good period lesbian drama, as you can imagine. I didn't see Amaranth or whatever. I haven't seen that.
Amaranth. I will say Disobedience was, I believe, was not unless the period was like 2005, and that would be the difference. It was like a modern day one.
If it ain't now, it's a period. I say.
I don't.
If it doesn't say present day or today at the very beginning of the movie, it's
you
a
have
period.
to see a newspaper that says 2021 on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting because that was the follow-up to A Fantastic Woman from director Sebastian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was that, and then he made a remake of his film Gloria as Gloria Bell, which was starring Julianne Moore. I almost said Juliette Binoche. Different famous actress.
Pretty different.
Both great, though.
Have you seen The Clouds of Sils Maria? Anyone?
I have. I wasn't a fan of it at the time, but I'm much more familiar with Olivier Assayas now that I might appreciate it more. I've always loved Juliette Binoche, I will say. And she for me, it was more the idea of the film that it's a very like pondering. It's a very French film. I'll put it that way. I love a lot of French cinema, but this is stereotypically French in the fact that it's a movie about making movies, but also not having a direct storyline, just people talking about what it means to be an actor. And
I liked it.
I will say it seemed a lot more interesting to me than the follow-up nonfiction, which I watched in a film festival. It was thought was basically just a podcast for 2 hours that was shot and filmed. But I've learned to really love Olivier Assayas since I've seen more of his stuff. Cold Water and Irma Vep are great.
Didn't he also do a Personal Shopper?
He did Personal Shopper. I didn't get to see.
Oh, it's the
Shopper.
same.
Oh
that's
yeah,
the
I forgot
same
that was in
director?
between. Yeah,
With what's her name?
Kristen
with,
Stewart is in
Stewart.
both
Kristen
of those.
Stewart, who's also in Clouds of Sils Maria.
Well, that's what's funny is I got together with a friend of mine, well, over the internet because it was during the pandemic, to watch what we thought was Personal Shopper, but it turned out we were thinking of Clouds of Sils Maria, so we watched that instead. But I need to watch Personal Shopper too. Anyway, yeah, I really want to see a Fantastic Woman.
Well, I just wanted to bring it back to the queer stuff because I think Stewart needs to really be like her kind of queerness needs to be rethought. Because I just
rethought. What do you mean?
I don't know. I just feel like she doesn't get enough. Doesn't get framed as a queer presence on screen. I mean,
rethought by people. I thought you meant by her.
I think that
was
she's
like,
very
what?
authentic in person, but she's not as much in the films that she's written.
Yeah, and like I want to rewatch The Runaways, and I just want us to like Twilight. Fuck that, but like I guess I just want to like I want us as a culture to rethink.
Well, she was recently
got his moments. Why can't Kristen Stewart?
Mm-hmm. She was recently in that. Oh Lord, what was it called? It wasn't very good, but it was sort of charming in that it wasn't very good. Yeah, the holiday one.
I heard
which I watched.
Dan Levy was also in that one.
Yeah, Dan Levy was
speaking
fun
of
in
Schitt's
that,
Creek.
but, like, yeah. But it wasn't very good. And it had some problems, but also like it was kind of nice that it was just like a shitty holiday movie, but with a lesbian couple, because it's like they pump these out for straight people. It's like, yay, we just get
that's
one.
why I kind of get why people like fell over themselves for Love, Simon, even though I thought it was bland, because I'm like, I get it because they were like, I get how a bunch of queer teenagers could be like, oh, it's like the straight thing but for me, even though I think that the queer character is not written very well.
Has anybody sorry to cut you off. Has anyone seen Beauty and the Baker?
No.
That sounds familiar.
It got canceled after one season straight away, but like there's a dedicated fan base that wants it to be picked up so bad it like went to Netflix and had this this like second revitalization. Anyway, there's their daughter, the family's daughter, is gay in it, and she's adorable, and like she has this one line where she just like comes home and the mom is like giving her shit and she's just like, you wonder why I have self-esteem issues, and it's just like oh my god, just such a good character. And I forgot to bring that up. That's what I'm watching currently.
I'm glad there are sitcoms now that portray queer people in a way that isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Because that was literally all that I had as a kid. I watched tons of How I Met Your Mother. That shit fucked me up. Because that was just, there was a trans joke every other episode.
That's kind of like Friends has... Friends has
was
like
bad at it too.
Gay panic or like
a lot of that.
For the longest
male
time,
panic
Seinfeld
every
was the
episode.
gold standard for sitcoms and queer representation because they just said, I don't care. And that was somehow a gold standard because every other show wanted to make a joke out of it.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I remember that. That was
not that there's anything wrong with that. Became like the best queer representation for a lot of mainstream sitcoms outside of like something like Will and Grace or Modern Family, because people were like, well, I don't expect this any better. And it's like, we kind of deserve to have a character that isn't a joke because we wouldn't accept that with anything else.
Well, that's why I loved Mare of Easttown so much, because it was just like, her daughter was just, she was just gay, and that's just how it was, and it was never, it wasn't a plot point, really, like, it wasn't anything, it was just like, that's just how it is, and it was just awesome. I don't know, that's what I loved. Right, that's what I love to see, is just like, just being people. Anyway, we're 4 comments in and 45 minutes in. We're doing...
This is what happens when you bring me on. I ruin everything.
You're not ruining anything. No. This is fantastic.
Yep.
But yeah, shout out to The Handmaiden. I really loved that movie.
Oh, Handmaiden's beautiful. I love Park Chan-wook's filmography. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Handmaiden, one of the things I love about The Handmaiden, I'm sorry, I'm going to drag us off course for like 1 or 2 more minutes.
If it's about The Handmaiden, it's fine.
The thing about The Handmaiden that's really interesting is that instead of filming the sex scenes between the 2 lesbian characters by himself, he just would be like, he would just leave it to the female crew members and be like, you direct this. I don't think us, the male crew members, should be in the scene. This is a personal scene between two women.
Oh.
We have no control over this. And he would just let other people control it, and he would let the actors take control of the scene. And that's kind of really cool and unique for a director to do, and I really respect that, especially coming from someone like Park Chan-wook, who is like a veteran of the scene, who's very respected in a lot of Korean cinema circles, to just be like, instead of being full of himself and like being like, I am the director, I make the decisions, just kind of being like, I don't know everything. I'm going to listen to these other people and in fact let them take control of the scene. I think that's very
shout
cool.
Shout out to Mad Max Fury Road for similar reasons. Like, he was like, hey, this is a uniquely, like, intrinsically feminist story, so I'm gonna like make sure we're doing this right and like consult.
That's the thing. So many movies would be solved if they just fucking talk to a queer person.
Yeah, like, just consult.
We
should start a company where we just consult on
that. My wife brings it up all the time. She reads. She's always reading a book. Reads. Finishes a book a day, like, honestly. And her number one complaint always is like the way men write women and POV and just like in the woman's head. She gets her.
Has she read a book? I'm reading a book right now called The 13th Tale. Has she read that? She'd probably like it. It's really good. Anyway, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Carol's also cute. Brittany Fuller says, might be cliche, but Rocky Horror Picture Show 2 had a huge impact on me finding my sexuality growing up. I vividly remember the first time seeing it on MTV for Halloween Eve when I was 11. It was hugely impactful in exposing me to different concepts and opening a door to the idea of people being transgender. Oh, wait, I think I skipped a line. Whatever, no time. I fell in love with the movie that night, and it became formative to my relationship with gender and sexuality. Yeah, fun movie. I saw it when I was like an uptight little Christian kid, commenting on myself, not Christianity on the whole, by the way. But like, I think I was too early. I was too young. I was like 7, and I was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "This isn't allowed."
I used to have like experiences like that with like obviously, like, I was like a kid, I didn't watch Rocky Horror. My family is boring. I'm kidding, they'll probably listen to this. But
hi, Emily's family.
But like, I obviously, like, as a 5-year-old did not watch Rocky Horror Picture Show at that time, but I remember watching stuff where like characters would like switch bodies or something like that, and I remember that being a transformative moment for me in a sense of like, man, I wish I could do that. Oh well, I won't investigate this for like 7 more years of my life.
Yo, same core. I recently rewatched the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. And like, knowing what I know now, being like, oh, there are a lot of other reasons why I loved this movie as a kid. Like, it's like
one of the best ideas I read was someone online had made like a post about like the idea of like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like the idea of a Slayer, like, you know, it's supposed to be this woman or something. The idea of it being a trans woman who doesn't know they're trans yet or isn't out yet.
Whoa.
So like the idea of it picked like that, and I was like, that's a really good idea that sadly is never going to get made.
Or it could be made by someone better maybe. Sure. Similar. Yeah. I love one of my favorite. I mean, Almodovar is so good, but like, and comes up a couple of times in here. But I just love The Skin I Live In so much. I fucking love that movie. Me too. You like it too, Mark?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we could be friends again.
I need to see it. I actually haven't seen any Almodovar. I need to. I know he's extremely important, and I know that. I just it's hard so to get. It's sometimes hard to keep track of get a hold of like some foreign language directors' film.
They just added a bunch to the Criterion Channel. A whole bunch of them. Or no, wait, HBO maybe. They're all just added to like a bunch of, or to one of them.
HBO Max Turner Classic section, legit. Don't skip it.
Yeah, and
I used to watch TCM all the time.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, in terms of Almodovar, you could really talk about any of his films because they're all queer.
Intrinsically.
So queer. Intrinsically.
One of my favorite things he did. Oh yeah, sorry.
What's that?
Go ahead, Mark. What did you say?
The Skin I Live In is interesting because it's a lot of people say it's one of his worst films. And
Which one?
The Skin I Live In.
Oh, yeah. I know it's not really well regarded, but
I found it so thrilling, and I love the style of it. And I think also if you've seen Franju's Eyes Without a Face, then it really increases your appreciation for it because it's
I need to see that.
A kind of trans remake twist on Eyes Without a Face. So
I've never seen Eyes Without a Face, but I love Holy Motors, which also pulls from that.
Holy Motors.
Yeah, Holy Motors.
I need to watch Holy Motors. I'm really excited.
Holy
for
Motors is dank. Yeah, stoked for Annette. My girlfriend is super excited for Annette, but having seen Holy Motors and knowing like she doesn't always go in for like super weird artsy stuff or musicals, so she's like super stoked for Annette because she likes Adam Driver. And I'm just like worried that it's going to be like super like weird art, like madness. Anyway, Annette,
I think the funny thing about Annette is, this is completely off topic, but I want to mention it before I forget it, is the idea. I remember there was that idea where Edgar Wright tweeted out, like, I just saw this movie that's like one of the most anticipated movies here. And everyone's like, it's Dune. And then I got revealed it was Annette. And everyone was like, oh, I'm disappointed. And I'm like, I don't care. I love both of those. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm stoked for
Like, he was like, it lives up to the hype. I'm like, that's high praise. I'll take it.
Brent Klaus brings up "Call Me by Your Name," the film, not Montero by Lil Nas X.
Both I enjoy.
Yeah, I like Montero. I haven't seen "Call Me by Your Name"
recently.
Oh, nice. Is it good?
By great creators. It's by a great creator by the name of Lolo Sebastian. I have to plug that by the way. But I enjoy it. It's a very weird movie for a lot of people because it has a weird age gap in the fact that it stars Timothée Chalamet as a 17-year-old and Armie Hammer as a 25, 26-year-old. So a lot of people
it was
are
Armie
like,
Hammer. Whoopsie.
Yeah, the Armie Hammer stuff definitely tainted it in a different light, but even before that happened, people were kind of weird about it. And I don't know. For me personally, like I get that feeling. I always view the film as like a thing about like an imperfect relationship in a way. Like I think it's about the idea of coming to your own realization. That's such as more about Timothée Chalamet's character Elio's perspective rather than like making the most appropriate choice at the time. It fits with the theme in a way of like him thinking that he's more mature than he really is. And even though I might say there's a better way to do that, I don't think it takes away from the emotional impact it had on me, because I think it portrays the idea of coming to realize you're queer in a subtle way. It also helps that Luca Guadagnino, the director, and the writer James Ivory are both openly queer. James Ivory, of course, being part of Ivory Merchant Productions, which made Morris as well. But it's just so interesting to me for me when I watched it, because it reminded me, even though I'm not male, like I thought I was for a while, and it had that similar thought of guilt of like, I can't. It doesn't do it directly, but there's a feeling in it of like, I can't be this. Can I? In that moment of like, fuck, I am, aren't I? I really am. And I think it really portrays that well. And as again, like I think that comes from the fact that like it is being made by two queer artists, and it takes away a lot of the stuff from the book that wasn't made from by a queer artist. So that improved it.
Oh, nice. Maybe I should see it.
I love Call Me by Your Name. And I have no problem with the kind of intergenerational aspect of it. I think we live in a culture that's really like just hyper obsessed with age and those dynamics there. And people are really quick to be like creeped out by a younger person, older person. But I think that there's a lot of filmic examples of it. And I think, anyway, but I love Calling by Your Name. But what I love about Calling by Your Name is not necessarily the intergenerational aspect of it, as much as it's so awkward. throughout most of the movie.
It is.
Their courting is not romantic in any traditional sense of the term.
Peach scene. The peach scene's the best example.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so I think they don't get along for a lot of the film, and then suddenly there's like a oh wait, like this tension actually can be metabolized into something that's more something erotic, you know, and I think actually the intergenerational does play into that too. But yeah, I think that so I love that the film takes this kind of chance by showing a kind of romance that is just like, that is not so sweet and romantic, but then turns into something that's very beautiful and then heartbreaking in the end too, I won't say. Sorry, I already spoiled it a little bit, but yeah.
I mean, it's a gay movie, so there's like a 90% shot that it's going to be sad at the end.
That's also
that's why I waited to watch. That's why I waited so long to watch Moonlight, because I was like, I just can't handle if this is sad. You know, and then spoilers, it kind of isn't, too. And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing."
It's both. The end is incredibly sad, but also incredibly like and just to end a film about black men just embracing.
Recently bought it.
Oh, nice.
About black men just embracing, not eroticizing black bodies, but just letting them actually be. Have an affection towards each other, and to show that kind of softness is, I think, actually quite revolutionary in mainstream representation of black masculinity.
Absolutely,
I can't think of like an earlier one. Yeah, besides like something like Tongues Untied, but like that was not mainstream cinemas.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna probably just like pull the names that people mention just for sake of time for a little bit here. Happy Gaming mentions The Birdcage, which I love so much of The Birdcage, but also The Birdcage is a fucking train wreck in so many other ways, because like the son is garbage, like he sucks, but like Robin Williams and Nathan Lane just like are so charming and funny that it kind of makes it. I've seen the original La Cage aux Folles, in which I don't remember if the son is like quite as overtly shitty in that, but like, emancipate that child, kick him to the curb. Anyway, Birdcage is great.
Emmanuel Lubezki did the cinematography on the Birdcage? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
I knew it was Elaine May and Mike Nichols. I didn't know that.
Tyler Travis brings up Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I still need to see it. I've heard weird things about Hedwig, and the fact that some people think it's very empowering and some people think it's a little bit like, in the sense of like, I don't want to use the word torture porn, but like in the sense of like trans misery on the front stage. And I haven't seen it, so I can't argue for either.
It's been a few years since I've seen it. I mean, the Angry Inch is a reference to like a kind of a botched bottom surgery, which I find a scary idea, but like is not really something that is likely to happen if you're going to a reputable surgeon. But like, yeah.
It's a weird film. I have a hard time thinking about it as actually like a trans film, because it's about someone it's like a compulsory gender reassignment that, as you said, goes wrong. And I think, and I won't say ultimately what happens, but I think the film is in the last 20 minutes or so, you start to realize like, oh, this is much more kind of more conceptually or theoretically interested in gender, rather than actually thinking about like, what is this story of this person who had to go through this thing, and what are the ways in which, how are they coming out of it, or how are they coming to a kind of self-realization or kind of self-acceptance. The film doesn't quite know what to do with that dilemma at the end.
The way you're describing it reminds me a bit of the plot of is it A Year with 13 Moons? Is that what the title is?
Yeah,
the Rainer Werner Fassbinder film. Yeah, because I've heard a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of trans critics about it, because I need to dive more into Fassbinder, but it was something where like I was studying it his filmography late at night, and I was like, it's 2 a.m. I can't watch this right now.
Yeah.
But I asked a couple of my trans critic friends about it, and their response is basically like, it's as with a lot of Fassbinder films, it's very powerful, it's very emotionally provocative, and it clearly comes from a place of his own queer experiences. But it's also not the best trans representation, because it's clearly using it as an outlet for his own misery and the fact of like how his queer life was not going well. I believe this was in response to his partner passing away, and as a result, like you can, their response is like, it's a beautiful film that clearly represents that, but also in a sense it is also using trans bodies as a metaphor for that, as and a carrier for that, and that makes it a overall weaker representation of a trans woman, and maybe not the best example of that, and also made me a little confused when Criterion Channel chose that as one of the 4 films to highlight on Twitter for Pride Month.
Megan Linhart has a couple of anime films. Twittering Birds Never Fly, The Clouds Gather, first in a trilogy of films that center around an attractive Yakuza boss named Yashihiro, who has dealt with a very traumatic past that caused him to spiral into the dark world of the Yakuza, as well as using a sex addiction to cope with his past.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it sounds cool. And then Given is a BL anime, which stands for Boys Love, as well a film that follows a group of 4 students in an amateur rock band and the dual romantic relationships that form among them.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Maddie Parker brings up Debs, or DEBS, which is a delightful and campy movie that has homages to like Get Smart and Batman 66, which sounds pretty magnificent. It's about a sorority of young spies trained by the government to handle super secret missions led by Michael Clark Duncan and Holland Taylor.
I was going to say, I opened Letterboxd and I see Michael Clark Duncan and I'm like, I'm sold already.
Yeah.
You say queer and Michael Clark Duncan in mid-2000s aesthetic, and I was like, into this.
DEBS sounds wild. Asbo Zapruder brings up Maurice, which you guys talked about, Merchant and Ivory. Although the taboo-ness of homosexuality plays a big part in the plot, it's ultimately a romance film complete with a rare, untragic ending. And then they mentioned My Own Private Idaho. And Parting Glances.
I
haven't seen My Own
fantastic.
Yeah, Parting Glances is good? I haven't seen that one.
Yes. One of the first independent films to address HIV/AIDS.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. They also brought up Jeffrey by Paul Rudnick.
Jeffrey's great
too. Who wrote Addams Family Values, which is a Patrick Stewart movie and a funny movie, but about AIDS as well.
Yeah, those are good films.
Cool. I got to add those to my list. Zach Wojnar thought that Love, Simon was a 10 out of 10. Jolly, sweet, romantic comedy. But we already kind of talked about Love, Simon. Would You Kindly says Lawrence Anyways, I think is the name of the film. Or maybe Lawrence. By Xavier Dolan.
I haven't seen it.
Dolan.
I will say Xavier Dolan, from what I understand, is very hit or miss.
D-Land.
I have a lot of Quebecois friends, and some of them have worked with him, so they've corrected me on it a lot. That's the only reason why. But like, for example, like I've heard some people argue Tom at the Farm is a great queer film. I heard other people argue it's a terrible queer film. The one uniting one seems to be Mommy, which is ironically one of his few non-queer films.
People like that one the best of his?
Yeah, I really enjoy that one. It's interesting because most of the film is done in a 1:1 aspect ratio.
Oh, perfect for Instagram.
Or TikTok.
But when it comes to Lawrence Anyways...
TikTok's 9:16, Hubert.
Shows you what I know.
The thing about Lawrence Anyways is like it's very... From what I understand, it's imperfect in a lot of ways, but it's also not as offensive as a lot of other like 2000s trans pieces from what I've heard. Like it's not as much like Dallas Buyers Club or Danish Girl or God forbid Girl.
I've never even heard of that one.
Girl it's interesting because it's basically just it got a lot of press at Cannes. I believe it might have won the Queer Palm, but it is basically just a trans story about like a trans girl's life going to misery, made in 2018, so way past when that was popular, and made by a cis director starring a cis guy as the trans girl.
Shout out!
Again,
that makes me
2010s.
That makes me want to shout out Tangerine, because I thought that was nice.
I love me some.
You don't like Tangerine, Mark?
No.
What's wrong with Tangerine?
I had a very uncomfortable experience watching it at the cinema at a kind of like early screening where the director, whose name is escaping me, Zach something.
Sean Baker.
Sean Baker, not even close.
Sean is basically like Zach. It's like a sharp S.
Q&A afterwards. So I was really liking the film for the first half, and I was like, oh, this is really interestingly done on this iPhone, and this is, it's funny and all these things. And then I started to realize, like, oh, the humor, and so everyone in the theater is just dying laughing. This is in New York at Lincoln Center, dying laughing, and I went, oh wait, they're laughing. They're totally laughing at these characters. They're laughing at how low class and how they're drug addicted and they're trashy and they're kind of a mess and they're kind of like getting into little cat fights, and they're actually loving like the wigs being pulled off and all that. Like they're loving the actually aspects of it that are subtly exploitation aspects. And so I started to really turn on the film midway through because I started to realize that it's actually not. Yet it's a celebrated film, and there's a lot of.
I mean, that wasn't my experience when I watched it. I watched it in LA, and it seemed like the audience was pretty deeply on their side. Like, at least I was. Maybe I'm naive, but like, I was rooting for them and their friendship the whole time.
I was gonna say, like, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I guess my experience was different in a way, in the sense that I watched it alone in my room, so I was able to, like, there was no influence from like the idea of how do cis people think about this. And I can see how that could definitely influence it, because I've definitely had that happen before, where I'm just sort of in a place and I'm just seeing the reaction of people and I'm going like, they're not taking the right thing from this. Right. And as a result, that's clearly a sign that there's something, it's sort of something where, like, even if I might have enjoyed it separately, in that moment, I realize a fatal flaw from that moment. And I think that's something where I haven't seen it in a while, so I'd probably consider it. Even then, even when I enjoyed it, I did think there were a couple of moments where I was like, a couple of jokes where I was like, I don't think that a cis-het director is allowed to make that joke. Like, there's that joke where he runs into a, like, non-trans sex worker and he berates her for not being trans, and the whole joke is, haha, that's unexpected. Like, I kind of was like, I don't feel comfortable with that kind of joke in this movie. And I say this as someone who enjoys a lot of Sean Baker styles. I thought Florida Project was beautiful, but
I like Florida Project more.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I do like the fact that it does start to trans women, and they were, instead of just abandoning them when the film came out, like they were going on press tours, and they got a lot more attention, and I really appreciated that they weren't just left by the wayside, because that would happen so often with other films, and I appreciated that at least. But I do think it was a flawed version of it. But I am happy that again, like, it's a film about trans women starring trans women in the way, in the same way that I was really happy seeing a fantastic woman. And
I gotta see that stuff.
Which I also
maybe
don't
I need
think
to
is a fantastic movie. So I don't.
You don't think it is?
I love it. I think Sebastian Lelio.
No, I don't.
Gee whiz. Well, you didn't like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, so maybe you just
don't trust anything.
Yeah, it's okay for us to disagree. Although you showed me the OG Wicker Man in the best possible setting at Wayward Cinema, so I am forever in your debt, Mark. Did you have something you want to say, Emily? Sorry.
I guess I was gonna say, like, I think the thing about like a fantastic woman is, like, at least, like, if I think the thing about that movie is, if you can, I think for the most part, the most people I've seen critique the movie, the one thing I think is a positive about it is the people I've seen critiquing it do it less so from a perspective of trans representation than from the idea of it being a movie by itself, and there's something about that that makes me feel good, because every other movie before would have to be torn down for how they were demonizing a person like me. And for once, people were kind of like, okay, it's an imperfect thing, but it's mostly a good portrayal, but I don't like the movie.
Right.
And in a way, I was like, I'm
true
happy
equality,
that
right?
can happen.
It's like,
yeah, I was like, at least there's a movie
are...
out now where even if you don't like it, you can say, it wasn't harmful.
Right. Like, we should be able to have just mediocre films that have good normal representation, right? Like, then we've arrived.
What do you... I'd love to get your take, because I feel like just so many straight people take so many of these roles. Like, moving forward...
I hate it.
Yeah, like, should it never happen? Should it happen sometimes? Like, when is it okay for a straight person to take, like, a trans role or a role for a gay character?
I think it's more of a problem when it's a trans character, in my opinion, because when you see a cis man portraying a trans woman, you inherently associate it with the idea of otherness, the idea of it being like a male character. That's what I think most people see, and they look at it in the sense of like, they don't look at it in the sense of like, this is a woman standing there who used to be seen as a man. It was only, this is a man playing dress up. That was also one of the big problems I had with Eddie Redmayne's performance in Danish Girl, was there was a lot of stuff that felt like it was just like, this is a role, this is me performing something, and it felt like it was very tacked on instead of just feeling natural to a character who clearly like was based on a real person. Like Lily Elba is a real person, and you read like her journals and stuff, and she describes it as like she felt more comfortable and more natural in the role. And instead of that, you just see it as this compulsion to perform. And that, and I think that's part of it, is the fact that like it wasn't just the writing of it, though I think the writing was very flawed. I think it's also the fact that it's Eddie Redmayne in the role and not a trans woman. I think the more you see someone like Eddie Redmayne or Jared Leto or Hilary Swank or anyone who's not trans playing a character who identifies as the opposite gender of the performer, you're going to see a lot of people associate that with the idea of the performer's gender rather than the character's gender. And I think that's kind of a problem. I don't think like it's impossible, but I think that right now in our society, like, it's going to have that effect. And it's also taking away from a lot of trans performers who are great in the roles. And whenever you see a trans performer take advantage of a role, they always do a much better job.
Well, like, that's the thing is like we live in a time and a place where like you could find, if you tried, you could find an actor that matches the character that you're, trying to portray pretty much all the time. And like it just, the problem is they don't try, it seems like most of the time.
They just give it to the top actors,
and I mean, like, at least Eddie Redmayne like said, well, at least Eddie Redmayne was like, yeah, I regret doing that or whatever, but like, and then he seems like a nice guy. But like, well, yeah, I guess he did do that too. But like, yeah, it's just like, I don't know, people got to do the work to actually cast people. I mean, like,
I did find out that he did
you don't have to be a doctor.
Ask Lana Wachowski before taking the role, because he was on the set of Jupiter Ascending when he accepted the role.
Oh, okay.
But like, it's clear he didn't get enough good notes, because it does not show. And it's weird to me, because I being a trans person in trans circles, like, every trans person I know is a creative in some sense. I don't know how it's hard to find a trans person willing to do a performance. Like, it's
that's my question all the time. It's like, it doesn't seem like it'd be hard if, like you're saying, Isla, to just do the work.
Well, it's funny. It was funny. I had an opposite of this moment when I started Sense8, because I was like shocked that they didn't find a trans actor to play the trans woman in that, and then I looked her up and I was like, oh, she is trans. They did it. Like, they did it. I'm just so used to them doing it wrong that I always assume that everyone's doing it wrong. And I'm just like, oh, Jamie is amazing.
The funny thing about Sense8 is I realized this in the Matrix video I was a part of. This was mentioned in the video, was that apparently the Wachowskis would, or Wachowskis, I don't know how it's pronounced exactly, but Wachowskis
we know who
would
you're
bring
talking about.
up like the idea of putting trans characters in stuff as early as like the Matrix and stuff. Made immediately
Switch was meant to be.
Yeah,
Switch was meant to.
I believe
be
Speed
opposite.
Racer was going to have a trans character, and they shut it down. There was no specifics about it, but the idea was, I don't remember his name, but the Babylon 5 writer who co-wrote Sense8 was like, this character, she's a hacker. She's like she's the idea of like transforming and all this stuff. Like, it fits with the idea of she's trans. And Lana jumped out of her seat and yelled, "It wasn't me this time. He did it. He gets all the blame for this. Do not say it's always me."
That's funny. I love the what's her girlfriend's name? Aminala. It's fun to see a lesbian trans relationship just kind of happen to.
Hey,
yes, Mark?
Lava Neno make it onto the list anywhere? Did anyone mention it in any of their comments?
Nobody mentioned it, but I want to see it. Oh,
it is probably my favorite. I don't know. It's a mini series, but it's probably
the HBO one, right?
Yes, HBO Max. Yeah. My favorite thing about about a trans woman.
I need to see it.
It was so it was like discussed a little bit in, I feel like, mostly gay circles when it was released in 2020, but Jesus, this miniseries is so amazing. And little fun thing too is that now they're doing Drag Race Spain, and they did the second episode is all the runway looks are inspired by La Veneno and her best friend Paca, who is in the miniseries as well and was her best friend in real life, is one of the judges on the for the runway looks. So really an icon in Spain, is still very much kind of like echoing into the present, and probably blows any of the things that we've just talked about out of the park in terms of trans female representation.
Awesome.
Yeah, I need to see that. My cousin was telling me about it and how much he liked it.
It's genius.
I'll put it on the list. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to skip some people's comments. I'm sorry, but thank you for writing in. Todd Kremer brings up Still Black, a portrait of black trans men. You don't know what that is? Well, I can tell you. It's nothing special in terms of how it was filmed, but the stories of these men who are part of multiple marginalized groups talking about their experiences is nothing short of astounding entry in queer cinema. I wanted to mention it specifically because of how underseen it is. Extremely grateful for having seen it. I haven't seen it. Sounds good. Cesar Villa brings up Three Generations, Pride, The New Girlfriend, Brokeback Mountain, and Black Mirror's San Junipero.
Ah, so good.
I love San Junipero. I have a poster of it in my living room.
More Black Mirror, please.
San Junipero was the first, like, I say this all the time, but I wept.
Yeah,
wept.
I loved it.
It's the nexus of, like, everything I want. I want a beautiful gay relationship, and I want to be uploaded into a computer to live forever. Like, it's all I've ever wanted. Is it too much to ask?
I haven't heard a Halt Catch Fire update in a minute.
I completely forgot it existed.
Ah! Okay.
It's too sad.
We'll circle back next episode.
All right. I'm in season 2 or 3.
Nice.
We'll talk about it later. I can't.
And I fell off.
And was
my hearing gets so better as it goes on.
Yeah, I like what, Mark?
And was Pride the one that was on the list? Is that the British one about the miners and the HIV activists? I love that film. I think it's a little bit trite in moments, but I think it's a beautiful film about
that's what Cesar says too. That it's
right underdogs.
That it does. It's not perfect, but it tries.
No, and you have and the soundtrack is incredible too. But you have these underdogs. You know, these queer activists fighting for their lives essentially, and these laborers who are in some ways pitted against each other and find a way to kind of forge an alliance to push against the kind of Thatcher regime. And I think what an incredible, political economic statement that film made. I love it.
Sick. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've seen the poster for it.
It's fantastic, yeah. But it's trite. It's cheesy. It's got cheesy moments.
Sure. Sometimes, that's okay.
Sometimes it's
like I was saying about that Kristen Stewart Hulu movie, it wasn't great, but hell, I was happy to watch it,
Different level, but okay.
There's cheesy and then there's cheesy.
Listen, what would a sandwich be without cheese, I'm
lactose intolerant, so bad or good. Colt Smith says they're so happy for me. Thanks, haha. But a lot of people said that. I've been cutting it out because it seems self-serving at this point. But thank you, everyone.
Wow, talk about yourself more.
I know. I did for 4 hours recently in 85 degrees in my studio. But Colt brings up The Matrix, Brokeback Mountain, The Hunger, The Vampire Lovers.
Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Lost Boys, and Interview with the Vampire. What's The Hunger? Is that the one with
Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon and David Bowie.
Okay.
Just lesbian chic, erotic, vampire movie. It's really sexy. It's 80s. It's very 80s. And I love a lesbian vampire movie.
It's a Tony Scott movie too. Damn.
Tony Scott, yeah.
David Bowie had a lot of great movies in the 80s, and a lot of them had queer themes in them too. Like, I'm a big fan of Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence as well.
But the best lesbian vampire movie is the Daughters of Darkness. Daughters of Darkness. So that's, I'm gonna throw that one out there.
Daughters of Darkness.
I also like the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 shout out. That was that's a great. That
very gay leaning film, they claim. I don't remember seeing it. I probably have.
Just a very weird movie to mention, but I love it whenever it is.
Yeah, Katie Garza brings up a bunch of that have already been brought up, but they're the first to mention The Favorite. Ooh, I love The Favorite. Mark hated it probably.
I enjoyed The Favorite, but I will actually be the person to say that it's my least of the three Yorgos Lanthimos films I've seen. It's actually my least favorite because I prefer The Lobster and Killing the Sacred Deer.
I prefer The Lobster too. I don't care for the
Deer. Lobster. Yeah. I didn't like that one.
I thought The Lobster I really liked it, but
vibing with the Yorgos Lanthimos movie. It's a very weird vibe to get into, especially The Lobster.
I love the.
You did Dogtooth also.
But The Favorite
is a very interesting movie to watch.
No, Dogtooth is great. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, you go, Mark.
No. I think Dogtooth. Please say stuff about Dogtooth because I think it's fascinating.
Dogtooth was cute.
Yield to you.
End of statement.
Okay, all right, fine. The Favorite is to me not really. I can see how one could think of it in queer terms or think of it as having lesbian aspects to it, but
they're pretty overt.
I
mean, they're pretty overt, but it's like the queerness is a metaphor.
It's not exactly.
It's not really about that. Yeah.
No, it's. Look, I love perversion, and I think that it's just like it's adding to the kind of perversion of the scenario there, of the kind of power.
Put that on the box.
Power
the
play.
Favorite. I love perversion.
I love perversion, and so I'm down with it, but I have a hard time thinking about it. I think it's about perversion more than it's about lesbian desire. I don't think that there's a desire there. I think it's all instrumental. It's all So I think that. The actresses are so fucking straight. There's no way around it.
Yeah, that was
themselves into a lesbian role. I'm like, and that I wouldn't say about all straight actresses, but I think those ones for sure. So I'm just like I'm not going there queer wise.
I kind of agree. Like, I liked how like queer it seemed, but you saying that, I'm like, yeah, none of them really seemed very gay in their portrayals. Love Rachel Weisz,
Olivia Colman and Rachel Weisz having a bit of chemistry in that queer way, but everything else was more of a power play.
I think that's just because I'm in love with both of them. That they can do no wrong.
Olivia Colman, I'm glad that she won an Oscar for that. Even if she wasn't my favorite performance of the year precisely, like I'm like, well, she earned it still. Like I'm not gonna take that away from her. Like, no, she earned an Oscar. She had an amazing performance. And she's an awesome woman. Like, I'm not gonna be mad about that.
Yeah, totally.
Katie also brought up Booksmart, which I really liked. I just thought it was such a nice little movie. Oh, it's such a cute movie.
I was gonna go see it in theaters, and then like a weird mess of stuff happened and I just wasn't able to. But I've not only heard it's a great movie, but I also heard it has like an amazing selection of like soundtracks to base around to theme the film. And like that's always interesting to me because I think a lot of when you're making a teen movie like that, you need that. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that they just weren't, that Olivia Wilde and whoever the music supervisor was, weren't just like, here's generic pop music. And you're like, no, let's fit the theme and the weirdness of the movie in this moment. That's what I've heard at least about it. I haven't seen it.
It's kind of like Lady Bird. It has a similar, where it like, because Lady Bird graduated high school the same year I did. And like, obviously I was living out some kind of girlhood I'll never have through that movie too. But like, it just felt like that period of time so well.
That was also me with Little Women.
Oh, yeah, samesies.
I walked out of Little Women being like, I want to fall in love and write a book.
You could do both of those things. Okay, so I'll skip the important question, blah, blah, blah. I'll just shout out to some favorite people. I asked who like some favorite voices and creators that people like. Tokyo Slim and a bunch of other people brought up John Waters, obviously. Lily brought up Lingua Franca, Isabel Sandoval.
Isabel Sandoval.
Yeah.
Awesome. She's mutuals with me on Twitter, and I love her so much, and she's super cool, and I haven't talked to her that much, but like whenever, the fact that she even knows who I am, I'm just like, you're one of the like best rising voices in movies right now. I'm honored. And
I
again,
gotta watch that. Lingua Franca?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix, and the rest of her movies are on Criterion Channel, except for the short film she just did for Movie.
Okay. Happy Gaming shouted out Neil Patrick Harris, Lath, cool name by the way, Lath, Russell T Davies, who did the original British Queer as Folk and a few other things. Would You Kindly has a whole bunch. Michaela Cole, Almodovar, John Waters, Lana and Lily Wachowski, Xavier Delanar, Dolan or whatever, Ian McKellen, Jodie Foster, Anoni, Arca, Svedaliza. Is Svedaliza queer? I was always wondering if she was. They were.
I'm always surprised. I didn't know that Luca Guadagnino was queer until I made that video with that. I was just like, oh my god, that explains the new Suspiria so much.
I loved that. I love
it too, but it is also now.
It has some problems.
Like, it's so queer now that I'm looking back at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no reason you cast Tilda Swinton 3 times like that if you're not queer. And I'm like, I respect that so much because, again, I would do that too, as I said.
Plus, Dakota Johnson is just so ethereal in that.
I love it. I actually kind of prefer it to the original. I know that's heresy.
I like them. No, I like them both for very different reasons. The original is like.
I like the new
awesome
one a bit more just because
garbage.
It's more artsy, and I'm the more artsy person in a way. Like I'm like, ooh, this is the one with all the symbolism. I like symbolism. Me art student. Me like.
Well, the OG one is like pure giallo. Like.
Oh yeah. I
just
love
like if you like red and blue and green colored light gels, then you're in hog heaven.
So many gels.
And I mean, just God Almighty, that soundtrack is just both movies, but Goblin
and Tom York. Wow, what a combo!
Ooh, I wonder if anyone's like mashed up their two the soundtracks, like done a remix with like
an amazing idea.
That'd be pretty fun. Anyway, blah blah blah. We're running long here, so I'll just say down to the last thing. I just asked if there was anything else that people would like us to discuss, and Lath had one that I thought was interesting, that with countries like China and Russia being important to film profits, do you think that this will prevent major franchises like the MCU or Star Wars from having queer stories at their center, i.e. will mainstream films be limited to small things that they can cut out for those markets, like that 3-second lesbian kiss at the end of that shitty Rise of Skywalker
I was going to say we're already seeing it. Shout out to the hyped up first gay character in the MCU, which was just one of the Russo brothers, who's referencing a husband that they cut out of the Russian cut.
Well, Disney's had I think legitimately 5 or 6 first gay characters now.
Yeah, they keep saying
it was live action Beauty and the Beast. It was in the Eternals. It was in Avengers. It was in this. It was in that. And it's just like, which is it? because none of them are substantial, so none of them really count.
I mean, with Rise of Skywalker, not only was it just in the background, but also it was in Rise of Skywalker, and that's punishment.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I think the answer is yeah, probably not. Like these bitches love to make money, so like they ain't gonna do it. Although allegedly one of the characters in the Eternals is gay, but I guarantee that any queer-coded language or touching can be easily edited out for foreign markets.
Exactly. Yeah,
I like
Like-
the hope because it's Chloe Zhao, but also I've seen a lot. I have. Disney's such a mega corporation, such a control over its image that I rarely like trust like a singular vision to make it through because they're so connected on the idea of this is our brand. You cannot mess with it. And that worries me a lot when it comes to the idea of an Eternals queer character, because I'm just sort of like, even if Chloe Zhao wants it desperately, I'm not sure if they'll let her.
Right. Brittany Fuller shouted out Sailor Moon, which is super queer, but in America apparently they kept censoring it out by like making. Apparently there was a lesbian couple as part of the 3rd season, but they made them cousins in English, and like all kinds of stuff that they just kept changing for the American release so that it wasn't, which is like par for the course.
There's a decent amount of that stuff. Like I believe it was like a translation thing, but I know that a lot of people argue that like they kind of whitewashed the queer romance in Evangelion with the new subtitles and the new dub because it's less explicit about the Shinji, and I forget the other character's name, but the white-haired boy that he sort of, it's very clearly, there's a very clear queer chemistry there, and they change it to like, you're my best friend instead of I love you in a way, where it's like,
So
but
messed up.
also, that's sort of a Japanese thing where it's like those words kind of mean the same thing, and it depends on the intonation. In a way, from what I've understood. So it's like, is it a mistranslation or is it the correct one? We don't know.
But we know which one we want.
Yeah, I want to see my depression robot show contain gays, god damn it.
We need a gay depressed robot show, for sure. Would You Kindly and Noah both sort of asked about queer coding and like films, mainstream films that are accidentally or secretly queer. Brought up Interview with the Vampire, Roger Rabbit, Wizard of Oz, Lost Boys, Batman and Robin, Top Gun, 300, Lord of the Rings. I mean, Frodo and Sam
the
are
Matrix
definitely,
trilogy that's been
definitely
confirmed
in
already.
love. Oh, the Matrix trilogy, is confirmed now. But yeah, I mean, queer coding is such a huge. It's in everything. It's all over the place, and it's
Both
so hard
in
to
good
tell.
and bad.
Both good and bad. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of creators throughout history have been unable to express themselves openly, so they use coded language to show it covertly. And
There's
then
also the queer
other
coded
companies, and other companies like use queer coding in trailers to get the LGBT community to go watch their movie, and then it's just not in it. So it happens on both ends of the
Queer
spectrum.
baiting. Oh god, I hate queer baiting.
But I love queer baiting.
Well, speaking of MCU, what
You're not gonna let me end the episode on a masturbation joke, Hubert? No, speak of the MCU,
No,
please
say it
go.
again.
No, that was it. I said the joke.
I botched the masturbation joke. I'm sorry.
It was a bad joke.
This is unforgivable.
Look at Mark's face. Professor Mark is very disappointed in all of us.
Not at all.
What are we gonna say, Hubert?
Oh, move on.
No. Moving on is the end of the episode. Say your shit.
I ship Sam and Bucky. Does anybody
Sure,
else
yeah.
like that?
Sure.
I want them to.
I'm Bucky and oh god, I'm forgetting
Sam's
Captain
sister?
America's name. I'm forgetting Captain America.
Well, new Captain
Steve,
America.
Yeah, Becky and Steve, like for the longest
thought
time
Bucky and
had so
Steve-
much queer chemistry, and like
Yeah.
and First Avenger and Winter Soldier, and I'm just sort of like, I know they're never gonna do it, and it makes the movies objectively worse because it would be so much better with it. Just making them character gay makes your movie better, just automatically.
Just right out of the gate, 10 out of 10 from the get-go. It can only
it only goes down the less queer people in the movie.
Mark,
That's
any
why
final
Portrait of a Lady on
thoughts?
Fire is great. There's only
Only women,
and there's two of them are gay.
They succeeded where Silent Hill failed in having a pretty much all-female cast. The cowardly studio wouldn't let them do it. Also, the Silent Hill film was bad. Mark, any final thoughts before we
on what specifically?
I don't fucking know.
On queer coding?
I like how
whatever.
I'm the college student here, and yet you're the one to make the most immature joke on the.
That's what I'm here for, you know. I just got to keep it lowbrow. But yes,
Fine,
thank
takes the heat
you.
off me.
Well, yeah. Thank you to Huber, and thank you, Mark, and thank you, Emily, so much.
Yeah,
thank you to everyone who wrote in.
Yeah.
There are so many more comments. They're really good. The comments were all really great. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to get to all of them, but if you want to read them, join the $7 or up tiers on our Patreon, and you will be part of the Film and Soundtrack Club, which gets you early access to this show. You get to comment on this show, and you get to be in Bloodworth's very cool, mysterious soundtrack club thing. I think that's the only way to get that show. It's our only one that's like paywalled like that. But we do
Bloodworth
also on our
Premium.
Patreon. I know, Bloodworth, the Blood Premium, dude. He loves it. But our highest tier on Patreon is the shout out tier, and so we have some people to shout out. Got a full house here. We've got Elthanis, Greg the Dark Knight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, Edsgar, So I'm a Spider, So What, I fuck this up every time. Edstocal, sorry Edstocal, Nick, Blue, and Jesse Blue. Shout out. But yes, thank you so much, Emily. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
This was magnificent.
Super fun.
Yes, thank you.
I
enjoy hearing you all speak.
You want me to
What do you mean, you all?
shit up again? I can do that.
What do you mean by you people?
Yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean, you people?
Oh my god. We need Portrait of the Lady on Fire, like, grudge match. That's what we need.
Just Mark and I just like watching it next to each other, and I'm like,
but just
look at the tenderness.
people yelling at each other.
Look at how much they care about each other, but they're afraid to move.
Yo, the YouTube video, the truth about Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
My honest opinion about Portrait of a
This
Lady
is
on
the
Fire.
death battle episode I've been waiting
Here's
for.
the thing. Did Portrait of a Lady on Fire get like YouTube videos of lesbians watching Portrait of a Lady on Fire like it did with Blue is Warm Color? Because those are fucking entertaining. I'm just
I need
saying,
to watch that. I need to watch those reaction videos.
One warrants a more fun, like, reception, fun parody.
Not everything needs to be fun.
The
Mark.
other one, it's like so
Oh my god.
boring.
Oh my god.
So boring. Who cares?
Listen, there is nothing better than that. I got to watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire in my room with a friend, just watching it off a laptop, just two trans queer people together, and that's kind of a cool experience. I appreciate that.
I
I like Pulp.
We weren't gonna do that with like
You like
we weren't gonna
like
do
Pulp.
that with
I like
the Fast and
stylization.
Furious series. Like,
And I like art house. I like serious stuff, but I really do like stuff that kind of gets a kind of I don't know. Is like tawdry and salacious and.
I love
Mark,
I love Autoserve. I just think there's something unique about a queer experience that you can enjoy with another queer person, and that was a movie that I was able to have that with, and
That's
I
awesome.
love that so much.
I love that.
I enjoy everything with other queer people as often as I can.
We are just better.
Well,
We make movies better, and we make the world better.
we do make the world better. Thank you, everyone. Hubert, it seemed like you had something to say.
I was gonna ask quickly if Mark has despised is too strong a word. Have you not liked a movie like Portrait of a Lady on Fire and then rewatched it later on and changed your mind?
Yes, I've watched many films I didn't care for the first time and rewatched and then liked it or even loved it. Yeah.
There it is. There's still hope.
Name 12
I don't
examples.
think I'm interested in rewatching that one, but maybe down the line. I don't know.
Nice.
Sorry, Isla.
It's okay, Mark. How can people find you on the internet, Emily?
You can find me, my username and most stuff is Adequate Emily, all one word. You can find me, that's my YouTube channel. You can subscribe there. That's where I put in most of my effort. For some reason, I'm more popular on Twitter, even though most of my stuff there is just random shit posts that I posted with very little thought.
Straight from the heart.
Just followed you.
Yeah, when I said I eat up the content slop, yum yum, I was really coming straight from the heart.
That's good content.
But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Adequate Emily, all one word again. That's where you can find my Patreon as well, patreon.com/Adequate Emily. And yeah, I have some stuff on the way for the channel as well. I've been leaving it dormant because my life has been very busy, but I'm very happy to return because it's the thing I do that excites me the most right now. I love creating stuff, and I'm very excited about it.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. Mark, how can people reach you on the intronets?
Wayward Cinema LA on Instagram and Facebook. That's the program. That's the series, and
it's fantastic.
Yeah. So if you're in LA, please come by, and we actually have a queer shorts program coming up June 24th. And then I don't know what we're doing after that. We just did Looking for Langston and Tongues Untied, double feature. Tongues Untied, Emily mentioned. Very important late 80s
Great,
black poetic.
It's on Criterion Channel too, I believe, if anyone's looking for it.
Yeah. So, and Looking for Langston is one people haven't watched that I would recommend. Anyway, so yes, more queer stuff coming up, and please follow us on those platforms.
Nice. I'm going to try to make that one, but I might be late because we have a podcast that night.
I understand.
And we're back in the studio. This will be the last reaction shots where it's easy to get guests because we'll be back in the studio.
It's going to be hard to get me all the way in Boston. So.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, if we get a guest that isn't local, maybe I'll just do it on Zoom again.
Yeah.
And you'll have to deal with it, viewers at home.
The Zoom calls are going to be nostalgic in a year, you know?
Yeah. We'll be missing them. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I think I remembered everything I was supposed to remember. Patreon.com/EasyAllies, Wayward Cinema, Adequate Emily, Michael P. Huber on Twitter. I'm at Isla Hink. Bye.
Bye.